Well, welcome everyone to the Higher Ground Project. This is a podcast for job seekers, career hustlers, and really anyone who's navigating the wild ride that is today's job market. I am David Peterson.
I'm Doug Kimball, and if you're like a lot of us in this field, if your inbox is lacking because you're getting ghosted by job seekers, by job hunters, or by recruiters, you're not alone. If you're feeling like you're just going up and down, what's happening? That's what we're here to talk about.
And this show exists for the sole reason of the fact that the job search is fundamentally broken. So every week, we're going to feature a guest who's really deep in the trenches. They're looking for their next big role. And we really do want to give them the spotlight that they deserve.
Yeah, and you'll hear real stories, unfiltered stories. As we talk to our guests, we want to know what they're actually experiencing because this is a difficult time for so many of us. And hopefully we'll try to provide in this process some advice that'll help them to move forward. So whether you're job hunting or just job curious, you're in the right place to learn more.
Now, before we introduce today's guest, just one quick note. The Higher Ground Project is sponsored by Think Strategic Alliances. Now, this is a great place for marketing leaders looking to grow their networks and find their next big opportunity. And every guest, including Jeff, that we feature on, oh, well, I shouldn't say it. We haven't even introduced Jeff yet. Let me go back to that. So before we introduce today's guest, just one quick note that the Higher Ground Project is sponsored by Think Strategic Alliances. Now, this is a great hub for marketing leaders looking to grow their networks and find their next big opportunity. And every guest we feature gets showcased on their website.
Yeah, it's a great place to go, whether you're going to be looking for fractional work or full-time work. There's a nice little portfolio section on there. So let's jump in. Enough of us talking. Let's get over to today's guest, who is Jeff Zacato.
Now, Jeff is a great friend of mine and is also a senior director of product marketing who has spent a lot of his career in the cybersecurity and operational technology spaces. Now, I know firsthand that he has a superpower for taking complex, confusing ideas and changing them into very clear, simple, easy to understand messaging that actually connects.
And I was talking to Jeff beforehand as also a product marketer. I know this, the skills that he brings from whether it's scaling content strategies to building narratives to drive adoption. Jeff's the kind of marketing leader that knows how to drive results and tell the right stories. But like so many of us out there right now, he's dealing with a job market that makes even the best of us have challenges to get solutions and to find those opportunities.
Jeff, my friend, welcome to the Higher Ground Project.
Thanks, you both. Happy to be here.
So one of the things that I think, and one of the things was kind of the initiative behind this whole concept that Dave and I have been discussing, is a chance to clear the pipes. I mean, let's face it, this is not a fun place to be. I don't mean our podcast, but the job hunting is not a fun place to be. This is your place to vent, get it off your chest, just kind of a little bit. So, Jess, what has been your biggest frustration in your job search so far?
Probably, unsurprisingly, it's going to be the ghosting. It's, when either your resume and application go into a void and never get seen again and you never hear back from anybody, or it's you start the process and you've talked to a couple of people, you've done some of the interview work and you never hear back about any progression. The word back from the company just completely disappears. I was just looking at my list of applications I've made. I'm at nearly 200 and like 47% of them are I've gotten no response at all. So that means I submitted the application and nobody's responded. And the other is like 46% that I was not selected for the role with absolutely no engagement from the hiring manager or the recruiting team at all. And the longest it's taken so far is 112 days to hear back.
Wow. That is wild. Jeff, can you zoom out for a second? How many months have you been looking for work?
I would say not that long. Since early November, which is forever to me, but it's not that long to a lot of people.
So you have sent 200 applications out over the course of just a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that really is a really great prime example of how broken this job search and this job market is. I mean, Jeff is a senior leader. He's worked at incredible companies across cybersecurity and operational technology. And he should have been scooped up the moment that he was looking for work. And here we are 3 months later and 200 applications later, and we're having this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's dehumanizing. Now let's be fair for a second. Assume that maybe Jeff's resume is not so good. or maybe assume that the job she's applying for maybe outside the scope. So that's always the possibility. And Jeff, I'm not being negative towards you at all. But either way, I think a company, if you're putting hours into the application process, if you're spending the time to try to tailor things, whether you are the perfect candidate or a pretty darn good candidate, you should hear back within a reasonable point of time. And I'm seeing the same thing in my efforts. A lot of people do. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about like what you've done to try to narrow that down, to try to be that right candidate?
Modifying cover letters and resumes to fit the job application a little bit more specifically has worked with limited success. But when you're talking about applying for that many jobs in, 4 or 5 months, that's a lot of work to write a unique cover letter and create a unique resume for each and every application. So my ability to do that was pretty high in the beginning. I had a really high interest in doing that. But as the time went on, it's just a drag. It's a lot of work. And you know that you're not going to hear back, and you lose interest in creating all of that unique content. And here I am, a product marketer. That's my job. You lose interest in that unique content because you just know it's going to go into a void.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Let's just shift gears for 1 second. What is one good thing that has come out of your job search experience so far?
I've reconnected with a lot of people that I hadn't spoken with in a long time. When I made the announcement on LinkedIn that I had been laid off, people reached out from like companies I hadn't worked for in 10, 15 years, hadn't spoken to in a long time. There's a lot of good support out there amongst your connections. People that I didn't even realize remembered who I was have been generous enough to offer to connect me with people at their companies. So it's been really good to remind me that you're not alone. There's a good community out there of your colleagues.
Absolutely. And not to be a broken record, but this is a very important point. Networking should be a huge part of your job search. If you're out in the market looking for a new role, start building your network if you don't have a big one yet, or start using and leveraging the network that you already have. This will not only help you sort of streamline things and help you see more opportunities in the hidden market that aren't necessarily posted on LinkedIn, but also, at least from my experience, it's just great for your mental health. Job searching can be a very siloed, depressing adventure.
Yep.
And so just connecting with people, even if they don't have a job to give you, and just saying, hey, I'm in the market, can we talk for 15 minutes? That is a successful conversation, not only because you're strengthening or building your network, but also you're taking care of yourself. So I really applaud you on that. And I think it's very, very smart to leverage your network. Let's move on. Yes, it's very, very lonely. Fantastic. So let's move on to the next part, which we call marketing superpowers. Jeff, tell me about something that makes you stand out as a marketing leader.
I've always been pretty good at doing one of two things, usually at a B stage startup. It's coming into a product-led company and taking messaging that's usually product focused and very technical and turning it on its head and talking about it from the perspective of the customer. What's their challenge? What do they worry about? And how do you talk about your product from that perspective? And it's pretty much the same thing at every B stage startup. A stage, B stage, right in there, where we've built this cool thing. We think it's the coolest thing on earth, and it's got all these neat features, and look at what it does. And that gets you to a certain point in your maturity. But after that, you've got to be talking to the customer on their terms. It has to be about, what's their concern and how do I fix it?
Yeah, that customer focus, that clarity, the ability to draw that out is a very underrated skill. And that's one of the things I think with as a product marketer, we have that same mindset is how do you get people to understand it's not features, it's not functions, it's value, it's outcomes that drive to that. And so now I go from that to helping to convert from sounds interesting to a actual engagement. So before we go to the next question, I want to keep on that one. So tell me a bit more about how you do that. So what is it that allows you to draw out that, this is a very complex thing, and now even us dum-dums can understand what you're trying to say?
So it involves a lot of embedding myself with the product team and with the sales team, but primarily with the product team. I want to be in all of the meetings that they have where they talk about the minutia of how a product works. only by getting that knowledge and talking to them about how they've designed the product, how they intend it to work, can I kind of make that connection between what the customer needs and what they've actually built. But then also sitting with sales and understanding, what are your prospects telling you is the problem? Because that sometimes can open up some windows of information that I didn't understand or I didn't know. So embedding myself with those two teams is usually what I do first.
Love it. Love it.
So Jeff, give me one more marketing superpower.
Scaling content. And that is something I had to learn because in the startup, let me start again.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, repeat the question.
All right, so let's see. All right, Jeff, give me one more marketing superpower.
Probably scaling content. Creating good content is one thing, but creating it quickly enough and in the right volume is really difficult right now. Everybody's doing it with AI, and I had to learn how to use AI to do that. I felt very guilty doing it for a long time, but the content I feed into AI is my original content. I'm just using it to help me figure out, how can I make derivative pieces of content? How can I, create something new that's going to address something that's a problem in the market? So I use a lot of AI to scale content.
I love the term you said about derivative content. That's one of the things that I think anybody, whether it's product or content marketing, needs to be thinking about is that derivative content concept where you, like you said, you fed in your mindset and you get an answer, but you're not looking just for the answer. You're wanting to build other things on there to add to that. So I think that's a great term. That's the kind of thinking that sets real leaders like you apart. I mean, content should have multiple lives. It should earn its keep and become such a valued thing for the whole sales organization. So excellent answer. I like that. Actually, let's flip the switch a little bit here. We're sharing some ideas. If you could now give some of those, there's somebody listening to this podcast, and you could give them one piece of advice, how would you tell them to stand out in today's market?
It's really tough. Like I talked to a former boss yesterday who put two JDs on their website and posted it on LinkedIn on Monday. And by last night, he had gotten 200 applications for one and 600 for another. And he spent his evenings going through 300 applications to try and whittle it down. And I don't know in that situation how you differentiate yourself. I think I'm starting to learn that the cover letter probably is more important than I gave it credit for. Not including one at all, I think, to a hiring manager or the recruiter who's taking in all that information, they might say, well, you didn't care enough to do that much work. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Because here I am applying for 200 jobs in 4 or 5 months, writing a unique cover letter every time, even using AI to do all of this. It's a chore. It's a lot of work. And when you don't get the results out of it, you're not getting the ROI out of all that work. It's disheartening to go and do that again for the next application. So I'd probably say pay a little bit more attention to the cover letter. It's important. But other than that, it's really tough. Networking, make yourself well known on LinkedIn, develop a persona there, I think can be important. But the networking is really key.
Yeah, I mean, these are all really great pieces of advice that everybody listening should follow. One of the stories I wanted to share about Jeff is when he got back into the job market. I'd been in the job market already for a little bit, and I was able to share some learnings with him because me and him have very similar career spans and trajectories. So I don't want to speak for you, Jeff, but when I got into the job market again, it felt like I had been married for 20 years and was on dating apps again.
Like that's a really good analogy.
It was like, how do I do this now? Because it's a completely different playing field. Yeah. So one of the things that Jeff and I spoke about was cover letters, and not just cover letters, but tailoring cover letters that you can send directly to the hiring manager. And when we say tailoring it, really, it's just putting in a prompt to ChatGPT saying, write a cover letter for the job description below using the attached resume, which is your resume. And also bullet out the exact experience that ties directly to the job description. So this cover letter is not just 3 or 4 long paragraphs. This is a bulleted list of how you will fit every single job spec that is listed. And to Jeff's point, the importance of that cannot be understated. This is how you define yourself. This is how you stand out from the pack, is by showing, not just sending in a resume and calling it a day, but really showcasing exactly how you could fulfill every single demand on that job spec.
Also, when you apply for a role, using LinkedIn to find people that you're connected to at that company or that are like a second level connection, people are a lot more willing, are very happy to make connections on LinkedIn. There's been nobody that has ignored me, even people that I haven't talked to, like I said, in many, many years.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of using LinkedIn for for personal branding, for work branding. And I think some of the things, I know, David, you do a great job of this, is putting out, some like, I guess, inspirational, insightful, poking content, as I like to call it. Hey, I'm still here, but I'm putting out something that is relevant. But don't just putting out your content is important. You've got a point of view. You establish that you know stuff in the space, but then following other people who are doing that, liking their material, not just liking, but commenting on it, because that continues to bring your name and your credentials onto second level contacts, third level contacts. That's important. And if the recruiter that you've just applied to the job for, hey, I'm going to check out Jeff's post or Jeff's profile and sees he's doing some things, I'm like, oh, this guy is active and he has a point of view and a thought leadership. I think that has a big impact. And then having your friends say, hey, I saw Jeff make a post, I should refer him to such and such.
And participating in other people's posts, commenting, liking, sharing. It's not just your point of view, it's participating in giving the feedback to other people or your commentary on their posts too is important.
That's a really important point to make, especially for people who are not as familiar with LinkedIn and may find it a little overwhelming. Just start commenting and liking. That is a great first step to just kind of get you in the mode of using LinkedIn. Because unfortunately, if somebody, a lot of the applications that I fill out, it is required to put in your LinkedIn info. You cannot submit your application unless you have a URL that goes directly to your LinkedIn profile. So even if you don't want to completely overhaul your LinkedIn profile, you do have to show that the lights are on. Because if the lights are off, or if somebody thinks the lights are off, I mean, let's make an analogy to dating, right? Which is you're basically a catfish. Right? So, nobody, even if you have 20 years of experience and you've done IPOs and all this kind of stuff, a recruiter or a hiring manager will look at your LinkedIn and say, well, he doesn't seem viable to me. Right. So again, everything that Jeff mentioned, 100% accurate. And that is the first step that I tell people who are looking for a job. You got to at least show that there's some activity, and you can do it just by liking other people's posts. And with that, Jeff.
Actually, quick question for Jeff before. Next up, Jeff, do you have a portfolio website? Have you put anything together like that?
Yeah. So if I'm going to give somebody some advice, if you're a marketer, this is a really tough one. I don't update my portfolio until I leave a job, and that's always a mistake. Update it as you go along. So when I got laid off this time, I went to go look at my portfolio. It was old and outdated, and I needed to update the content. But in some cases, you might not have access to the work that you had done in the past. So I do have some holes. Like one cybersecurity company I worked for, I couldn't take any of my content with me, so I have to go to their website and find the stuff that I worked on and put it into my portfolio. So it's important to keep a track of all of that.
Sorry, David, go ahead.
Oh no, absolutely. No, that is a great piece of advice. Update your portfolio as you go along. Right?
Update your resume as you go along. Always have your resume updated.
Absolutely. And I 100% vouch for that. When I got back into the job market, my resume was from about 15 years ago. And it was, I don't know if pathetic is the word. It needed a lot of work. So I could have skipped over that if I had just been updating it as we went along. Great piece of advice. Jeff, we're at the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for keeping it real today. This job market is absolutely terrible, but your story is powerful. I know it's going to speak to people, and your skills really speak for themselves.
I appreciate it. This is a blast. Thank you.
And to our listeners, hopefully something in Jeff's story resonated with you, helps you see, you're not alone in this process. The job search sucks. Even if you're getting results in a month, it's still unpleasant. Being ghosted, we talk about that. But most likely you're not doing it wrong. It's a difficult and challenging system. And part of the thing we try to do with our guests here is provide advice, not just today, But we're going to be connected with Jeff. So if I see a posting that I think might be of benefit to Jeff, I'm going to send it over to him. So we want to do this podcast not just to give you a chance to share your voice and your superpowers, but also grow your own connection. So if you're interested in being a part of this, we want to hear from you, Dave.
Yeah, listen, hold on one second. Okay.
Sorry, I kind of.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. So I think you said, what was the last thing you said?
This I said, that's also for you. We want to hear from you, but you could reiterate that however you want to.
Listen, it's really important to stress you're not alone here. I know that the job market can seem like a very lonely, punishing place, but this is the point of having this podcast. We want this to be a great forum for you to come and not only talk about your job search, but also for me and Doug to tap into our networks, see if we can find some opportunities for you.
So until next time, just keep showing up, keep telling your story. And remember, you're not alone.
You're just on higher ground. Thank you, guys.
Love it.
Sweet.
All right. Let me stop recording.
That was great.
Cool. That was easy.